All right, you are tuned into the famous Dwayne's podcast. I am your host, Dwayne. With me right now is my boy Ezra J. Say what up to the people.
What's going on, people? How y'all feeling?
So we may have a couple of guests coming, but some people on CPT, some people is calling in black. We'll see what happens. But we wanted to talk about reparations and what it looks like realistically. People have been talking about this for eons, really, and it's kind of like, all right, but what does it look like? I saw, I think it was Fox News that was talking about 300K per black person that can be linked back to slavery. Which, I mean, I could see it working if people had the mind to pool their money together to create some sort of independence or somewhere, take that money and succeed somewhere to where they can kind of govern themselves. But the way that niggas is set up, unfortunately, I can't really see that happening. I could see this just being the craziest party ever, and then it's just back to business as usual. What are your thoughts on the 300K?
Well, first of all, I spoke previously before we got on, before we started recording, that I had 2 points to make. And the first point, since you've brought it up, I'll go ahead and interject it now. When calculating this amount of money, I think if it is a serious conversation to be had, something that people might want to take into deep consideration is filling out the census. Because a true number of how many people are considered Black or African American in this country may come into question when they start trying to allocate funds to pay for individuals who may be ADOS, which is, African descendants of slavery in this country, right? So that's important. That's one piece that I want people to make sure that the federal government is tracking actual African-American numbers. So when they're talking about 350K or they're talking about $14 trillion price tag on what it would take in order to pay everybody that they have on record, if another 13 million Black people show up saying, hey, we're Black and we're ADOS, that's going to cut that drastically, if you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So that's one piece. In terms of what I feel like, if the price tag would be $300,000 to $365,000 as a windfall to individuals who are descendants of slavery, and then I would need to know what that looks like. So mixed individuals, my mom is a direct descendant of a sugarcane plantation in Louisiana. Matter of fact, they were gifted it once the great whomever passed away. So they are aristocratic Black money in Louisiana. But on her birth certificate, it has on there Quatroon. So she's only a fourth African American. And then, of course, my dad being from the West Indies, his people came from West Indies, Louisiana. He's full Black, but what does that look like in terms of how do you break down the percentage pieces? Do you cut out? I mean, if you think about it from the perspective of Native Americans in this land and how they're paid based on what their percentages are, will it be allocated based on percentages? That's something else to think about. It would be a windfall. I would immediately take my money and invest in Dollar General, weave products, nail products, car lots that have stylish cars. Because at Walmart, it's going to be a furniture stores, like rooms to go, because it's going to be a windfall of spending, and all of these organizations are going to get. I mean, the only way I see them paying reparations is because they know our consumeristic minds and trends. So essentially, we would be giving them the money back. So we would be stimulating the economy, which is what they would want to do anyway.
Right.
Which is the reason why this is even a conversation on the table. Let's be 100% honest. Is because the money that we give would be a windfall stimulus package for big business in America. Because we don't own anything. So the money would not stay in our community. As soon as the deposit hits, it would immediately start being funneled through all of the current administration's friends and family, right? Um, and that's basically how I feel about it. The party piece would come after people went out. I do believe that some of us will go out and buy homes because we consider that to be Black success. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
got to grow up on the Cosbys, and they tell you, you know, these are the things that you need to do in order to be a good Black in this country. So I do believe when you talk about the top 10, the talented 20, and the other 80%, even in a large chunk of the 80% want to own a home so that they can say, I got a house, right? Um, but whether or not they can maintain it. So again, just like think about the cycle of income tax. You got a lot of people who run out and buy new cars during income tax time, whatever the case may be, and then
Mm-hmm.
by summertime, if it needed repair, they can't afford it, so it end up sitting up. So now you lost all your initial investment because you couldn't maintain it, you couldn't afford it in the first place. So you're gonna see a lot of people go out and run and buy big old homes, not understanding that the ticket price on the home is this,
Mm-hmm.
but the annual maintenance costs is this. And so
Right.
if you don't have an income to match the annual maintenance cost, it's crazy. For instance, you know, my electric bill on my home is, and I keep it cold because I refuse to be hot, is upwards of $300, $400 a month. You know, there are some people that's what they make on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you afford a 1,200, 1,700, 2,200, 5,000 square foot home, and what comes with that? Property tax, electric bill, water. You know, we're gonna want to move into these neighborhoods with HOA fees. Are you gonna be able to do the maintenance and upkeep to keep you in this type of situation? And I just don't think that it's going to be one of those circumstances. So it's gonna be a swell of wealth in the form of cash.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a swell of acquisitions made. And then within 24 to 36 months, we're going to have a swell of foreclosures and a swell of repos and a swell of, you know, returns where the individuals who had the original wealth, for the most part, are going to end up back with it.
Right.
They're going to be able to say, hey, that's y'all on y'all. We did what y'all asked for. Y'all broke because y'all broke. You were horrible at budgeting, yada, yada, yada. That ain't our fault. No more. That's it. That's where we draw the line. We don't care nothing about Black lives. We gave y'all money and you fucked it off. And this is where we're going to be. So that's long-winded, but that's kind of my answer to your first question.
Yeah. Very, very true. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I've been saying that for a while. Like, yeah, you're just gonna give them. I mean, I was just taught like it's not about what you make, is what you spend, and
Right.
how you keep it. And yeah, we just the culture that we have is very consumeristic.
That's American. So that when
Yeah,
we're more so consumeristic because we feel like we need to keep up with the Joneses and the
yeah,
Johnson and the Smiths and the Williams and everybody else. So that's the American institution. We consume about 70% of the world's crap in America, but we do it overwhelmingly so.
yeah. We always got to like go above and beyond. We always got to black it up. That's just what we do.
Yeah, we got to black it.
And I mean that could be a good thing, and it could be a bad thing. And in this case, it would definitely be a bad thing. But yeah. I mean, now that I'm thinking about like the music I was raised on, and how it's changed now, and how basically every strip club anthem, every rap song is basically like this a long billboard about, yeah, I'm gonna just throw this money away because I can't take it with me, or
Because we don't
you
know
know,
what to do with it. Nobody has taught us money management or financial literacy, and that's something that's going to really, if and when this comes to be the financial literacy piece that we kind of lack in our community. And I'm talking about the other 80%,
hmm
which is all the cousins and whatnot. That's going to be the defining thing for us, is that how do you take what you have and then move that throughout the generation. Something I was having a conversation with my parents recently about was, we talk about how to build wealth, we spend a lot of time in progressive Black households talking about how to build wealth. What we don't really spend a lot of time on is talking about the responsibility of that wealth. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Okay. And for those in the that's listening that don't understand what I'm saying, the responsibility of wealth is mom and dad, granddad, grandma amassed huge amounts of whatever, and they passed it on to the generation. That does not mean that you run out and you go spend up everything that they've left you. That should be a foundational jumping off place for you to then grow what they have given you so that you then can leave it to the next generation. And I think that, when you talk about generation, I mean, you can already see it. You think about those sharecroppers, the transition from, the plantations to sharecropping to having their own land, even though those individuals, great grandparents or grandparents, great grandparents, they didn't have a lot of school education, but they knew that they needed to buy land, right? So a
Right.
lot of them bought land. The kids, the grandkids, the great grandkids, as soon as they get in, before they get in the ground good, you've sold off the tree rights, the mineral rights, you've broken up the land, you've sold the land off because you don't want to live in the country, because you don't have any ties to it. It seems ethereal to you in your mind, so you don't have the responsibility of wealth. You don't understand how that the reason why they bought this is because this has value over time. Even when the price goes down, eventually the land is going to flip and the price is going to go up, and you
Right.
hold on to it because it may be a time when you need to liquidate those assets and then use it to move it into another asset class in order to continue to grow it. So there is a lack of understanding and the responsibility of after you generate the wealth. We need to have more conversations of what happens once you pass it along, and we're missing that in our community.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And going back to the fact that everyone was gonna they're gonna buy all these things that they can't maintain. You know, black people always say, well, not always say, but a lot of them will say, act like you've been here before. Whenever you're at a nice restaurant, instead of being like, "Oh, this is nice," and just act like you've been here before. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, and we have this gift and the curse of faking it till we make it. But we really need to seriously not look about, but look into what it looks like getting to someone if you've never been before, having conversation with some of us that have been there, that are there currently,
Right.
and picking their brain as to what's coming with this territory that we're about to amass. Um,
And really at this point it's not even about you even speak. If you don't want to talk to anybody who happens to be Black or African American, go speak to anybody who's been there. Like, I mean, th- when it comes to trying to create wealth, from a monetary standpoint, because I want to put a pin in the fact that we spend a lot of time talking about monetary stuff. And I want to make sure that we understand that wealth is not just a materialistic piece. There is intelligence, there is a wealth of health that we need to talk about in our community. There's a wealth of knowledge that we need to gain that has nothing to do with whatever. There's a wealth of community and village that we need to kind of bolster back up. We have a tendency to focus on the monetary or the financial side, but we really need to be thinking about all of the agents of socialization as it pertains to wealth building and creation. But yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly when you say that we need to really consult with people who can give us that inside track on what it looks like. I've gone to college. I'm second generation college. Both of my parents, have advanced degrees. Um, but it wasn't until last year until somebody said money is like a moving current that it kind of clicked how individuals who have money keep money. Like, until they said that, it literally stopped. We were walking down the hall at a school, and it stopped me in my tracks, and I turned and looked at them and I said, repeat that again. And so they repeated it again, and I said, ah. So when you think about all the asset classes, and prior to digital, which is blockchain crypto based, there was 4 asset classes. So when you think about when one is not doing good, you move that money into one that is doing better to hold it and to hedge any losses. Well,
right.
I didn't understand that up until that point. Keep in mind, I make great money. By American standards, I do okay. I come from individuals who made great money, but it wasn't until that, and I'm 43 now, so I was 42 at the time. It wasn't until that person made that statement to me until I fully grasped that in order to be able to hold on to wealth, you have to watch every asset class market and know where that money needs to go to when times get rough and one. So when the housing market takes a tank, you may need to move over to tangibles like gold and silver. When gold and silver have leveled off, you may need to go into the treasury note bond markets for safekeeping. You may need to put it into to a currency of reserve. You need to move it over into digital. Wherever is making the money is where you need to take your money. Case in point, when COVID happened, what happened to the markets? So many Black people who are heavily invested in 401ks and Roth IRAs lost huge amounts of money. I lost about 8% because I had been screaming for the longest that people needed to recession proof. So I pretty much recession proof as best as I could my portfolios across all asset classes. But I lost 8%. Some of my friends lost 30 and 40% of their portfolios in 7 days because they weren't mindful of the fact. And again, that goes back to the responsibility of wealth. Like, you have to understand how to amass it, how to hold on to it, how to pass it down, and make sure that those individuals don't burn through it within 24 months of you dying. Like,
Right.
that's the responsibility of wealth. And I'm rambling on, but yeah, we need to have a conversation about how do we hold on to the money once we get it. But most Black people don't like to have that conversation. I'm a part of a daddy's book club. And when we start talking about finances, that is like any other time, them fools will talk for 4 or 5 hours. But if you start talking about finances, and these are all lawyers, doctors, financial advisors, I think I'm the least educated person in the room with just a regular bachelor's degree, right? But when you start talking about money, they get real quiet because we don't like to talk about money. That whole fake it till we make it, even when we feel like we've arrived at some type of American piece of the American pie, we still don't like to talk about what we have and what we don't have. And we don't like to exchange knowledge or be told what to do with our money. And so it keeps us from being able to build exactly what you stated previously. Reaching out to someone and having the money conversation is almost, if not more difficult than having the police conversation with Black people.
Mm. Yeah, and actually, when I used to work at the gig before I have now, this guy he lived in Brooklyn. He was like, yeah, there was somebody over there in my building. He was living in the projects, but he was sitting on $1 million. He was very low key and everything like that, but he had a lot of investments, and he had told me some of that stuff. But again, like he thanks his lucky stars for that person, because had he
Right,
not done that, it would have been a totally different ball game.
right.
So it's just and I wonder why a lot of us. Well, I know why. Now that I think about it, as far as like we're very we can't hold any other secrets, but when it comes to this particular one, or like to help us get more leverage, it just seems like we don't want to. We have like a fear of loss. We don't want to like put ourselves out there or even make ourselves a target to like kind of build a platform. And I'm trying to figure out why that would be.
I'm not sure, bro. I got to be honest with you. I don't know why we feel that way. I, I'm still trying to crack that shell because although I believe wholeheartedly in my immediate village, I don't want other Black people to suffer. So I spend a lot of time trying to educate Black people on how to be resilient against any number of things, right? But the money conversation is very difficult for us. Very difficult. So as it pertains to if and when we get reparations, excuse me, I think it's going to be very problematic for a lot of us because you're going to see a peak and a decline super fast in a lot of people. And
Mm,
then you're going to see an uptick in, crime. You're going to see families fall apart because, my dad and mom always said, and my mom, they grew up kind of having money. My dad did not, they were very poor. So I can remember being young, like 6, 7 years old, and he asked all his brothers and sisters to come to the house, and he threw a barbecue for them. And then before everybody left, he was like, "I'm making an announcement that I can't be your backup plan when you fuck up."
Mm.
So later on in life, he pointed back to that situation, and he said, what I did was I told them that I can no longer pay a black tax to you. I pay your electric bill, and you at the bingo hall on Saturday night living your best life. Well, I done took money away from my kids to help you out, trying to be big brother, because I got money, I got excess. I'm trying to make sure everybody takes care of everything and trying to
Right.
be. But you're gonna see families break up because they're gonna be family members who burn through theirs. They're gonna be family members who hold on to it, and then they're gonna be expecting the people who hold on to it or who got it to bail them out when times get hard, and it's just not gonna work out that way. You know what I'm saying? People are gonna be like, "You had your own, you fucked it off, and it is what it is." So you're gonna see it's going to be some ripple effects to this whole thing. There's going to be some things that happen within, if it ever happens. We're speaking hypothetically, right?
Right.
There's going to be some underlying things that we're not even tracking right now that are going to be ups and downs as it pertains to this windfall of money all of a sudden. Which brings me to my second point. So the 13th Amendment freed slaves and indentured servants. So would indentured servants also be in line? Because indentured servitude is Europeans, which is
Mm-hmm.
which is the poor white people in America, which are all of the individuals who we're currently having a fight with.
Mm-hmm.
I have not personally met anybody who would ever admit that they were a descendant of an indentured servant, because slavery was here and they was like here.
Yeah.
So I've not ever met one. And I've asked poor white people. I travel the country all the time. You know how I do. I
Mm-hmm.
asked, "Do you know anybody where you," and nobody, and keep in mind, statistically, the books show that at the height of the African slave trade in America, there were 3 times as many indentured servants.
Mm.
What their kids? But would they be also able to get money from this whole situation because it freed them as well? Because that's a completely different dynamic, bro. And I
Mm.
don't think people are asking that question. Think about it.
Probably not. Yeah, because I remember before I was in California a little bit, maybe a couple months before I met you actually, and there was this white girl, and we happen to have the same last name. And she goes, "Oh, look, I know what you're thinking, but my family's poor, so you know." I was just like, "Wow, wow." So perhaps, but then I hear also that it takes about a generation to like lose wealth too. A lot of generational wealth is lost after a generation
Well,
because
I mean, she could have had the same last name because y'all could have both. I mean, because the families could have both been on the same plantation, owned by the same individuals.
very
One was
true.
an indentured servant, the other one was chattel slavery, or enslavement, should I say, not slavery, chattel enslavement. But that the last name could have came from the fact that just because you were poor doesn't mean you didn't own anybody. You could have your family name could have been owned. And
Mm.
again, we're not having that conversation at all. And I keep asking people, does this include the indentured servitude class? Because if it does, then I honestly believe you're going to see everybody and their mama going to throw their hands up. Just think about the Dawes Act when Native Americans got that windfall of money, and all of those white people started raising their hands, talking about they was Native American, and they
Mm-hmm.
ended up benefiting from what was supposed to be for the natives to this land. I can only imagine how many white people going to throw their hand up in the air. They mad talking about all lives matter right now. They want everything to be equal, so they're gonna
Right.
immediately run out and be
Yeah.
like, "I too have to keep hot sauce in my bag." Like they're gonna
Right.
be a part of this whole situation if it in fact covers them. That's something we need to be thinking about because that will dilute the money.
Mm. Yeah. It's almost as if, because my thing is, when I think about, the plays that are at hand, the current narratives that are going around, I'm always thinking like, how would the evil genius think? Because I think a lot of people underestimate their quote unquote enemy and how smart they really are.
Right.
So perhaps, cause if you've been living under a rock, or if you haven't been living under a rock, you can kind of tell what they're trying to do as far as pitting certain people against each other in this current climate.
Of course.
Some of it's organic, and some of it is definitely orchestrated. And this reparations talk is definitely, that might be the final nail in the coffin. The straw that breaks the black camel's back. And it's like, what's the end game here? Like, okay, yes, we have the indentured servants. What about the black natives that were here before European
What about
arrival?
freemen? What about the freed individuals that were here before? Because I mean, we act like everybody was a slave. I'm a gentleman from the great state of Louisiana, and I can tell you for certain, French men from France married African women all the time. And when they ventured and vacationed in the United States, they brought them here under paperwork of slave ownership so that nobody else would steal them and put them into slavery. So their wives, their children were on paper as slaves, but back in France, that was his family.
Damn.
So, like real life family, not like a fake family, like you run down to the slave quarters and impregnated somebody. No, he married her in front of everybody in the world, and those are their children. But in America, he had to put them on paper so that no one would take them. So not everybody who came to America was a descendant in terms of the African slave trade. Some of the individuals were free on 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
We can't act like that wasn't a possibility. We can't speak in hyperbolic terms about this whole situation. We got to get it really down to brass tacks about what is and what isn't. But I, again, have to say, I truly believe that the indentured servitude class is going to be the rabbit they pull out the hat. Because if they do that, then you're not talking about $300,000, $365,000. You may be talking about $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And once they get through taxing the hell out of you over it, it's not going to be a whole lot.
Right.
I promise you, every white person in America going to raise their hand. I swear for God, the 12 white people on the jury, this is going to happen.
Oh, real quick, my boy Darian just showed up into the chat. What's going on?
What's good, G? My bad.
Nah, no worries, no worries. You called in black. It's all good. I'm just talking with my boy Ezra here, just about reparations, what it's looking like, and he's just wanted to factor in, the 13th Amendment didn't just free slaves, but also free indentured servants, which was like just a tier above. And would they have a case? And if they didn't have a case, how would they respond to that? Because I mean, white people are very despite what they don't have shame about when it comes to having humble roots, if you will, or coming from like a long line of society's underclass, if you will. They don't really like to claim it like that.
No.
So
I have a real interesting question. Now you said something about it, because I had heard something, like one of the guys I listened to he was saying that he asks white people all the time, where do y'all come from? And they can never give you an answer, like a definitive answer.
Right.
It was just something interesting I just thought about just then. I was like, oh well, that is actually a good question, because they'll easily say they're from Europe, but I'm like, okay, so where are your origins from there? They can never tell you.
Yeah.
So it's one of them type of things.
Yeah, the way that there's there's so many different levels to this black thing, as far as more than just the pigmentation. There's people from the Caribbean, there's people from Africa, there's people from that were here initially. There's black people everywhere. Yeah. I can't really say that there's white people everywhere. Maybe at some point or another they were when they were making their rounds, doing a whole colonizer thing. But there's levels to it. There's levels to this whiteness thing. There's a lot of quote unquote mixed black people, like mixed with different kinds of black mixed with black. There's a lot of white mixed with white. and they're just as muddy as we are, and they can't trace back their lineage, or maybe records were destroyed, or maybe they just, again, it was just something shameful, so
Well,
they
you have to
didn't want.
understand that when you talk about the origins of America and how we got the 13 colonies, keep in mind that, for example, the Georgia colony was nothing but criminals. They took all the dregs of society from Europe, Great Britain, put them on, said, listen, you in jail, you over here at the house for, access and functional needs, people who had extra chromosomes. They were like, if you want to be free, you get on these boats and go colonize America. And they literally dumped these individuals in Georgia. So when you think about how crazy Georgia and Florida are today, you have to understand the historical perspective on who ended up in these places. So there's something to be said about them not remembering where they're from, because to actually go back to that would really destroy their position in this overall white normative sociological structure that they've created. Like the normative white structure, even if you go back in time, if you haven't read the book White Fragility, I think you really should read that book, because it really speaks to exactly what you said about the level of whiteness. Like there were aristocratic whites who for the longest were never associated with poor whites. But once the Italians and the Irish came here, they had to start building coalitions with poor white people for voting purposes, because Italians and Irish were very village-minded. They were voting in these cities, New York specifically, against everybody else, and they were winning these elections, right? So they had to build coalitions, and eventually so much so until, even though they hated whites and Irish, they had to add them, because there's a difference between Western European whites and Eastern European. I mean, when you talk about these level of whiteness in America, this social construct we created over here, in this place, there are levels. And so again, when they talk about they don't know where they're from, a lot of times it's because the people who did know where they were from did not socialize it for fear of being realized for what they actually were: inbred, unwashed. My white doctor still told me one time, he was like, you do realize most diseases on the face of the planet came out of Europe, right? Because they didn't take baths, and they were walking around in cow and pig feces and traipsing it into their houses. So all the bacterial infections, cold, all these things. Most civilized people of color nations were very hygienic. They always had remedies. They didn't get sick often. They didn't have to deal with curing meats or anything to that degree, because things were plentiful. Europe was a shithole, for lack of better words, at the time, if you think about it.
Yep.
And so coming to America was a win for them, because being over there, they didn't have water, they were overpopulated, they were on top of each other. They came to a place with a lot of place. That's why they had a feudalistic society where you had the bottom of the tier, which is who they dropped over here as indentured servants. In order to keep that feudalistic mindset, that socioeconomical ladder in place, they had to create someone who was lower than them. And even though to this day, I can go deal with poor white trash, they will still believe that they're better than me, because of generations of thinking that we are the lowest rank on that pole, on that ladder. Right?
Yeah, I had read this book a while ago. It was Black Rednecks, White Liberals, and it was talking about like a lot of that like white landlords were more prone to actually rent to black bourgeoisie as opposed to this like your typical white trash. Like if you had like an accent.
They hated them. Again, I can only come from what I know. I'm from Louisiana. Aristocratic Louisiana money, they cannot stand Cajuns. They would much rather deal with Creole people than to deal with Cajuns. And Cajuns are those Canas is the French word for coon ass. That's where they get it from in Louisiana. So the Canas, they came from France and came from Nova Scotia up in Canada and Quebec. they didn't want to deal with them because they were poor country bumpkins that they did not want to associate with. They would much rather deal with black people who had a level of class, whether they came from Africa, the West Indies, South America, to deal with the poor bumpkins that looked like them. But again, because of voting, they had to realign themselves. And that is part of the reason why poor whites vote Republican against their own best interest to this day. Because mentally they have aligned themselves with aristocratic whites.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? Like how it's crazy how you can like see that in every single nation there's always a sprinkle of white. no matter where you go in Africa, they got somewhere that they are. They got some like places in Australia. They got places in pretty much everywhere. They got to make sure that somebody is there. And I was also looking at like it's crazy how like when we talk about colonization, how colonization works, how they you pretty much wiping out pretty much what the other the other race or somebody that you particularly colonizing want to erase everything that they were going towards. Like I think I've seen like maybe one or two pictures I've seen that popped up from black people that were rich, like rich black people that were in Europe and these other places, like paintings. And you see, I think it was something I was reading up on. Like a lot of those paintings were burned or destroyed. Because that was kind of their way of, you ain't got nothing to kind of look back to if you really know. I don't think I'm wording it right. Of what your heritage is. Like if you don't really truly know what your heritage is, it's nothing that you can be prideful about. I guess it's kind of a way of breaking us.
Yeah, it has like no frame of reference.
Mm-hmm. So
I mean, if you think about, we talk about Europe, the original dynasties in Europe were Moorish Africans. I mean, they were from, the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia. So, when Prince William had his daughter, the monarchy always names their children after somebody who has been in the monarchy previously, right? So Princess Charlotte was from Princess Charlotte, who happened to be, researcher. She was African. And it was a big old thing in the monarchy to name this little girl after an African prince that sat on the throne in Europe, in Great Britain. And so in the beginning, they thought they were going to change her name. But of course, they pushed through. The Queen gave the okay on it. But it was a big old thing for the bourgeoisie class and the royals to denote the fact that we're going to name our child after the original individuals who sat on the throne. So, I mean, what just goes as evidentiary to what you just said, that we were there in the beginning. I mean, you got to go back to the mindset of the mitochondrial DNA of the world is African. So it's not European at all, although they would have you believe it based on any number of, systems and institutions that they've created. But it's just not facts.
The Eve gene in black women is a real thing.
Yeah, that's that original
mitochondrial DNA. Definitely a real thing.
So with reparations, we were talking about, when Fox was talking about the $300K for each black person, and how, again, if these indentured servers, want to get their cut, how it's going to take away from that. But and then also taxes.
Said $300K?
Yeah, $300K per person, like per black person.
I think I don't want to kind of go into that. I think like is that something you guys came up with just tabbing off of 400 years? Because I feel like to be more accurate, we had to really tab up like how much work, like how much value you put on the work of 400 years, and pay us based off of that.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you're gonna be able to quantify that.
Because that's what I'm saying. So
you're not gonna be able to quantify that especially when you think about, when you take into consideration inflation adjusted incomes and how, and where those 400 years look like, and the fact that we've had two different monetary system changes in that time as well. Then you think about the fact that, at the time, different states had their own denominations, and the worth of those denominations varied. It can get really, really crazy. So if you're trying to make the case that we should be getting more than that, of course, that goes without saying, yes. But just off the rip, I think if they're going to use a base number of $300,000 to $365,000 per person that can be proven, again, that's another caveat. How do you then prove if you are ADOS? And a lot of us who believe that we're ADOS might not be ADOS like we think. I grew up with one of my friends in my neighborhood was a Jeffersonian. He was red with red hair, and of course they get paid off for the fact that they're Jeffersons, but he didn't know that he was a Jefferson until that whole thing came about, and he was almost an adult at the time. So we don't really know where we sit in this whole thing. So although I agree with the fact that 300,000, 400,000, $1 million a person is not enough, what do you think would be enough after 400 years? Keeping in mind that not everybody arrived at the same time. Not everybody was born during the same time. There are going to be people who were half and half. So you might have married somebody who was free, or you was enslaved, or somebody who was free made enough money to buy somebody who was enslaved and then created a family with them. How do you then quantify all of these caveats to these situations? And the reason why I say be careful with that is because they already don't want to pay us no money. So if they bring it to the table, you don't want to have them asking additional questions about stuff that's going to bring up shit that's going to decrease the amount, because the more they got to think about it, the more that the minutia of it might start to stall.
Well, when I say that, I'm saying like you gotta think about not just us being enslaved. I'm talking about like even the inventions that we were a part of, all those type of things. And my thing is this: you can set it up like, say for me, I'm a disabled vet, right? And I get a percentage every month. I feel like the same thing can be like that for us, is getting a check every month rather than us getting a big lump sum. You don't think so?
I don't trust the U.S. dollar.
You said what?
I don't trust the U.S. dollar enough. Give me all mine up front. I'll take the
all up front.
Lottery win.
See, that scares me too, though, because I feel like how I don't know if you notice, like folks that be talking about when they get into a lottery, and a lot of people that make the lottery, they end up being killed somehow, or they end up just disappearing. I don't want that we start getting chipped off the block because they done paid all these black people all this money. And they decide, like, you know what, we're paying them so much, we might as well just go ahead and just wipe them off. We did it to Native Americans. I don't want them to think like that.
They don't have to get that deep. All they got to do what's going to naturally happen anyway. The U.S. dollar is going to tank in the near future. So if they pay us all this money and then the dollar is removed from a currency of reserve, the dollar will tank and our money won't be worth shit anyway. So they don't have to kill us. They just got to kill the dollar, move their assets somewhere else.
Like, and that's exactly when black people will get reparations.
Yes. When the dollar's going to tank, they're going to give it to us and it's not going to be worth it. And if you're smart, you'll move it to another denomination or another asset class, or you'll invest, or you'll do a currency exchange, you'll put it in digital, whatever the case may be. But I promise you, if they say they're going to allocate print digitally or manually $14 trillion to pay the descendants of African slaves, you best bet within the first 12 to 24 months, the dollar is going to tank. It's not going to be worth shit. You're going to be walking around with them Civil War bonds in your hands. You're not going to be able to do nothing with it.
Yeah,
I just feel
like, no, don't give me no check. Don't give me no check. Give me all mine up front. I'll deal with it.
I just feel like it's going to be some type of condition that's going to come with it. Like, it might be some BS like, oh, well, we have this a certain amount of money for you, but, you know, for us to give you that money, you're going to have to get this chip. or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like the
I
little
already got a
RFID
chip. It's
chip.
on my cell phone. I already got it.
Yeah.
It's my cell phone.
Yeah, but I tell people all that all the time. I say my cell phone got a chip, my credit card got a chip, all that has a
I got a
chip.
chip.
You know what I'm saying?
I got a chip.
You got a chip in
I can leave my whole wallet at home. I can leave my wallet at home, and I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna roll the dice on it. If I leave my cell phone, drive back to the house and get it. You already got it. So you can feel bad about that. We can have those discussions until the cows come home. But I really don't think that we should be giving them the opportunity to hold on to our money, making money. Because again, if they allocate it from the federal government perspective, if they allocate $14 trillion to pay this debt back, right? If we tell them that we want them to give us checks every month, they're gonna make money off of our money.
Yep.
When you get your own money, you can make money off your own damn money.
Big facts. And well, real quick, Ajaya Divine has joined the conversation. And also, I'm thinking about not just the government, but there's a lot of billion-dollar corporations that have made a killing off of slavery that are still in operation right now, and they need to come out of pocket too. In fact, I feel like if we took some money from them and they put money in the pot, that it would make it more feasible.
We don't give it right back to them, but of course they should pay.
Of course. Like
Jim Beam,
JP
for
Morgan.
instance, their newest campaign is, we're not looking back 225 years. We're looking forward 225 years. Hell no, y'all not looking back, because y'all just found out the person with the recipe was black and y'all ain't paid the family yet. So of course you don't want to look back, because you owe people money, like a lot. Your whole livelihood generationally was built off of the fact that that individual did not have to stand on to patent the right to his recipe for making whiskey bourbon in this country. And so now you don't want to look back now. You don't want to look back. That's your new campaign is, we looking forward. So yes, they need to pay in some money. They need to.
You ever heard of Berkshire Hathaway?
I'm very familiar with Warren Buffett's company.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that could be one of our reparations too. Just one a stock of something of that nature for his, like, I think his stock is worth about 300,000 a pop for just 1% of his stock. I think, you know what I'm saying, I think that would probably be good for something like that too. One share is $300,000, close to $300,000.
That's real.
Yeah, but a lot of them, like Aetna's another one. And shit, I mean, now that we're at it, I'm thinking about, the other ones, the other corporations that are profiting off of privatized prisons.
Mm-hmm. So here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're muddying the waters.
Yeah.
We're getting into the semantics and logistics of whether or not this is going to happen. When you start doing that, you start raising a lot of flags, which means you got to send it through a lot of people to have conversations, which does nothing but prolong the situation. If they're going to pay people this money, we may need to be quiet a little bit and let them give us this money and then run with it. It's never going to be enough. You can't put a price on a life. You cannot put a price on 400 plus years. Even before the Americas, the disenfranchisement and the destabilization of Africa. You can't put a price on everything that has occurred after those first 20 slaves were dropped in the middle of Washington, D.C., what we know to be Washington, D.C. There's not going to be a way to quantify that or qualify it. But if it can put money in the hands of individuals to start a path back to some level of wealth generation, then we need to be able to try to do that and fast track it as soon as possible. Because I truly believe that the US dollar is on the way out. I mean, if you look at history, reserve currencies only last 125 years. We're at year, I think, 126 right now, with the dollar being a part of that whole thing. And so when you think about that, you got to be very mindful of what happens when the dollar is no longer a currency of reserve.
I mean, anybody who's paying attention can look and see that they are literally moving business to Africa, and China is going to be the new US. Like,
Yeah, no,
I mean, that's where it is right now. And if you're paying attention, you can see that. So you should be like, what are you going to do here? You know what I mean? With whatever money, as fast as you can get it, to get stable, self-sufficient, to figure out some things, because this is going, they're divesting out of the U.S.
I mean, I tell people all the time, I remember listening to NPR growing up with my dad, and they always talked about these global emerging markets. I remember being a little kid thinking about who is these global emerging markets. And now I'm older and I realize they're talking about, we live in America. So we have this Amero-European centric view of the world. We think we are the largest economy. We think we're the largest population. America only makes up 3% of the world's population. 80% of the world's population is in Indochina. It is in the Far East. It is in the Aboriginal Australia. It is in South America. It is on the continent of Africa. All of those individuals currently make up about 75 to 80% of the world's population. And most of them are where we were historically before the Industrial Revolution. And if you know anything about money, Industrial Revolution is really what created America's wealth. Like all of our American royalties, the Carnegies, the Mellons, the DuPonts, the Vanderbilts, all of those were titans of industrialized industry, right? And so if they start to move, as she so eloquently stated, to these places that were pre-industrial revolution like America, and they start industrializing them and then turn them into consumers, if you don't have your finger on the pulse of what the fuck is going on, you're going to lose, because when Rome fell, it still exists. You can go visit Rome right now. You can get on planes. But have you been there? Like, people are good, but they live off of chicken and olive oil, and they're okay with their everyday life and what they do. They're craftsmen, but it's not like it was at the height of who they were. Mm-hmm. Not. And that's how America's going to be. America's still going to be here when it all falls down. But if you already doing bad, you're going to be doing worse. Right now, Black unemployment is on target to be 50% by the end of this year, by fourth quarter of this year. That's Black unemployment. So we already doing bad. So if somebody want to give you $360,000, you take it and you run, and you go figure out how to invest it in some of those global emerging markets and grow generational wealth with it. I'm not waiting on a check.
I mean, it's simple. I mean, and it's good and bad. You know what I mean? Like, in the U.S., people are so used to being consumers and consumers only that they have to figure out how to become producers again in order to have any chance whatsoever. Because when you give people that money, most people only know how to buy shit. They only know how to buy things, and that is absolutely it.
It's too late. It's too late. The only reason why the rest of the world puts up with us, and I said this before you got on the call, is because we consume 70% of the world's stuff. That is the only reason why they tolerate us. Just as soon as they find a viable replacement for consumption, they're going to cut our throats.
Off. Done.
They won't need it. They won't need us. And that's the bottom line. So reparations or not, Black people need to lick their finger and stick it up in the air and figure out which way the wind is blowing, and try to cast their sails in that direction and float on.
I think now that you say that, I was like, I wonder if it's like an investment scheme, because if you give with this whole like back to Africa thing, you give Black people all this money, they run straight back to Africa to invest right back into the new industrialization and become the same consumers that they were here. So like, it's like, take this money and run to Africa so you can be the bourgeoisie. Now you are the white people of Africa. You know what I mean? Like,
so you're gonna fool everybody else. You're gonna make everybody else want to consume like you consume.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a process. It's a process. That's the only way you make money, is coming up with new people. You have to find new customers. Mm-hmm. Right now, America's going through a settling and a cleansing of consumer. People don't even know what to do with themselves if they can't go out and spend money.
You see what happened? What they do to Amazon during COVID. They done blew Amazon all the way up.
Yeah, we don't know what to do. We sitting around, we bored. We
go buy something.
We got to buy stuff. stuff we don't even need. I promise you. And I can't even lie. They knock on my door every day. I don't even remember the crap I'm buying. We just come here. I just press, and it's too easy. All you gotta do is press buy now. That's all you got to do. It's taken care of. It drops right at the door. Sometimes I'll get ready to leave and I open the door and it's a package there and I don't even remember what I bought. It's too easy. And again, as it pertains,
it's no different from a fast food restaurant. You know what I'm saying? You hungry for something and
people can't cook.
Yeah, you can cook, but I can go around the corner. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you cannot cook.
Whatever's available. I got Chipotle around the corner. I just go right there. And now they deliver.
The young people are they're not even imaginative anymore. I mean, just remember being young and, doing whatever, and you didn't have a whole lot of money and you could create a meal out of nothing. Like, you'll go in the cabinets and see stuff and be like, okay, I'm going to put that with that. These young kids ain't even imaginative enough to pull it together. They don't even have any, they don't have any moxie. They fall to pieces. So we really don't.
Yeah.
We put them to handle any level of adversity.
Yeah, actually, I was at this this gathering, sort of social distancing, but not really. And this girl's son, she was over here, and I believe he's on the spectrum. I didn't ask, but it was But he was over there playing with something. I think it was like a stick. He was like actually like using his imagination, and he's like, I think 14, and it was just so refreshing because you never see that anymore. They're either on a tablet, they're doing whatever. But he's in his own little world, and he's fine. He's happy. He's like, he's just really
living life.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
The workout.
I mean, it's gonna be ugly. Like it's gonna be beautiful and ugly. Like, because people are gonna be like, what do we do? What do I? You know what I mean? Like, what do we do? And it's gonna be like, figure it out. You're an adult now. Like you.
So
you know what? What's gonna happen is they're gonna legalize marijuana. I'm gonna give you so. Since we're talking about reparations and we need to invest our money, let me go ahead and give you if you don't already know, let me give you what the next 5 money-making trends globally is going to be. So get out your pen and paper, people. I'm going to tell you what's going to be the windfall of money over the next 10 to 15 years. Blockchain technology, cryptos go together. The Internet of Things and the Internet of Value. Talk about the Internet of Things. It is essentially everything in our homes wired and connected. Use case example is my Samsung refrigerator lets me know when the juice is down to 25% left. It gives me a note, sends me a text message and says, hey, Minute Maid orange juice is down to 25%.
That's some rapper shit.
Would you like us to reorder it? They reorder it, they contact Kroger. Kroger puts in a request and I can go pick it up, or Kroger can deliver it. In the future, my smart lock, my ring, will allow the Kroger delivery boy to have access to my blockchain encrypted key lock to the door where he can come in and put the groceries in my house and put them in the refrigerator. Driverless vehicles are another huge piece. You've already seen that there's been several acquisitions over the last 2 weeks for artificial intelligence driverless vehicle type scenarios. Along with those driverless vehicles will be electric. They will be electric. We are moving away from the combustion engine. You're gonna need blockchain and AI for that. Carvana is a use case scenario for you sitting at home, binge watching whatever you're watching on Netflix, and you're scrolling on your tablet or your device. You can purchase a car. That car, being driverless as it is, will come to your address. You'll walk out of your door. You'll use whatever code is on your cell phone to make that vehicle yours, and now it becomes your car. And so much so until it can take you to work, drop you off, and then it'll ask you, do you want me to make you money while you're at work? You'll hit a Uber or a Lyft button or an Amazon Prime button, and it will leave you at work and go make deliveries and make money while you're doing work, and then it'll come back and pick you up. So please believe me that is another big issue. Telemedicine is going to become extremely vital. Telemedicine is going to be big. You're no longer going to have to go to the doctor. The doctor gonna look at you through whatever. Basically now you go to the doctor, he asks you what you want. He writes you the prescription anyway, so might as well do a teleconference. Save your time, energy, and effort. All he has to do is send your scribe over to the Kroger. The Kroger will fulfill it. Then they can bring it to your house, or you can go pick it up on the drive-through. That's another big one. Quantum computing will probably kick in 2035, really, really big. So keep your eye on quantum computing. That's going to be a really, really important thing. When I explain quantum computing to people, because they don't quite understand it, watch some YouTube TED Talk videos on it. But the way I bring it to realization for folks is, you remember the Matrix when they went to that one building and it was nothing but servers running the Matrix?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be quantum computing. Quantum computing is going to run everything. It's going to use 5G, 6G, 17G, whatever we're on at that time. We're going to be able to run in real time. Vehicles will be driving themselves on the freeways. All we got to do is sit in there. We're going to have crypto digital wallets connected to our vehicles, and it'll pay for everything. You talk about Amazon Prime. We'll be able to Amazon Prime while we sit in the passenger seat or in the back of the car and be chauffeured around, and we're buying. Something to watch, because I'm kind of a cinephile. I like watching movies because movies kind of tell you what it looks like. Go back and watch AI with Will Smith. Go look at WALL-E from Disney, because they give you, in the background, they give you a picture and a window into what the future is actually going to look like. I'm telling you this so that you can invest in it, because whether you invest in it or not, you're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be the way that we do business. You might as well make money off of it. That way you can figure out how you want to conduct your life. You know, you talk about that chip. If you have enough money, you're not going to have to do what the peons do. They're going to get a chip. The first people who are going to get the chip are going to be people on government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Who have money, they're not going to get the chip. They're not going to need to. So if you can create a wealth structure in your family to hedge them from any of the crazy that might be going on, you really need to be thinking about that. How many did I do?
As a IT bro, I can already tell you, servers are kind of already going in that direction already.
Of course, they've been going in that direction since 1979. When Apple turned up their first mainframe with IBM, they've been moving that direction all this. We weren't tracking it.
And they already there. It's just that they piece out parts of it for profit.
Which is why Bill Gates told the world, I'm not leaving my kids any money. I'm only giving them $10 million a piece, but I'm going to give them 30 years worth of IT patent information. When he said that, my ears went up like a dog. Basically, what he's telling you is my kids are going to be more, because they have stuff that we don't even have infrastructure for yet, but he already knows it. I told you quantum computing. What is Bill Gates in?
Gotcha.
Computing. Mm-hmm. He's removed himself from Microsoft, because he already knows he's done everything he needs to do in order to create that wealth foundation for the generations to come. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do that no more. You can move on and work on other pet projects, like killing people.
Next. So
I do apologize. I apologize.
So the question is, though, since those fields are already, they know it's going that way and they've already invested in that, and that they're still going to be the leaders in those fields. Do Black people invest to be right under still, or do they create a different infrastructure?
Well,
or both?
I think we're too.
Why can't you switch yourself into the infrastructure? You just create a base for it. But keep in mind, see, you can't look at things linear. I told you that we're going to go away from combustion engines. I told my dad, spoke to my nephews here recently. They're very tactile. They like to work on stuff. I said, somebody's going to have to do with the reclamation of all of the combustion engines. Why can't we create a business that you can come do the conversion with us? We'll take out your combustion engine. We'll dispose of the aluminum block engine. We'll take all the differential oils out and we'll dispose of them based on EPA state standards. And then we'll set you up to get ready for the new electric engine. You got to start thinking about investments or how you can create businesses for yourself instead of what they're already doing. So you can do that, or you can do both. You can invest in it and then create something. Come to you for, you know what I'm saying?
Like, yeah.
we need to be thinking and having conversations about everything at this point. Anything that seems like it's viable, we might want to talk about
it. So I have a question. So, being that, because I feel like us as a people are kind of damaged to the point where I don't think like it'll be kind of like a half and half type of thing where.
Explain to me the
I say
damage.
the damage piece.
Yeah, I'm confused about the damage.
As far as getting people out of old habits. So like, as I do believe you give us $300,000 like a check for everybody, right? You'll have half of us that actually know exactly what to do with that money.
We ain't gonna have half of it. You're gonna have 10 to 12% of us gonna know what to do with it. But continue.
Yeah. Well, I was just throwing the number out there.
I'll be
but, the other side, you're gonna see about a lot of people walking around here with Gucci flip flops and
that's fine.
A lot of
so success is every individual has their own success trajectory. For some people, that is success for them, and that's fine if that's what they want. You got to get to the point where you're not encumbered by the craziness. First of all, we as Black people are not monolithic. We are not all carved out of the same piece of stone. We got to get that out of our heads. We got to be able to separate what one does from the other. I don't care what somebody else spends their money on. I might think that it's irresponsible, but I don't know what their pockets are doing. If you go in my closet, you're gonna see Gucci loafers and a whole bunch of other stuff. But at the same time, I could pull up my entire portfolio, and you're gonna be astounded by that as well. Everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who live in trailer parks. I don't have a problem with it. That's not something that I aspire to. But if that's where you are, that's great. I will go buy one of them tiny houses, spend $100,000 on that, pay cash for it, and live in it and be okay, because that means I can then leave the country when I need to and come back to the country when I need to. Or hitch them up to the back of a truck and roll that bitch around the country with me as I move around and do what I need to do for whatever the case may be. So although I understand what you're saying about it, I didn't mean to cut you off, so I do apologize. No,
you're straight.
We've got to get to the point where we're not encumbered and we can't move forward because other Black people are not going to do what they're supposed to do. You got to take care. You got to circle the wagons for your village. And then if you can influence people a little bit outside of your family, if you can get to your immediate family, your kids, your wife, whatever your structure is at the crib, if you can circle the wagons and do good for them, and then maybe influence people, mom, dad, uncle, auntie, grandparent, if you can start building that out, that'll be great. That may be the only thing you can do. The other Black people might have to suffer. Oh well.
They already are. Like that, I mean, that if we just don't continue to change. But what you were saying about the finding businesses within the thing, it was like there's even like it's just so behind, like we're gonna get taught shit here in the US. But there's been a new the blue economy, a new business model that's been out about, and that basically, I read the book, that's what they're talking about. It's finding a waste stream and turn it into a profit stream, and turn it in what is available in your area that people consider waste. How can you make money off of it? And that is what we need to start teaching. Like at this point, I don't feel like nobody should even still have their children in school, because they're not about to teach them anything that's going to help them do anything going forward. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
we learned in COVID exactly what the public education system was. It is a glorified daycare service. Yep. We saw it working in real time, that it was glorified daycares. And really, parents are okay with that. Parents are okay with your kids over here and being babysat while you go and do whatever it is that you do, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that, abuse has gone up. I got more fucking Amber Alerts when everybody should have been at home than any other time since they started doing Amber Alerts. If you lose one more kid and you at home with them, I don't know what to tell you.
They running away. Get me the hell out of here. I can't stay here with these people no more.
You're going to have to create it. We're going to legalize marijuana. We're going to decriminalize and deregulate marijuana. We're going to move it from a Schedule 1 and we're going to put it back in the Schedule 17 or wherever in the backfield. We're going to make that profitable. And so I don't want Black people to run out and because now you can sell weed, that's what you think about doing, because you're going to be competing with Walmart and 7-Eleven and Amazon, and they're going to be dropping stuff off at the front door for people. So you as a corner boy, they're going to take the thief out of the game, you're not going to make any money. But if you look at supply
There
chain
already-
management,
There are already stocks out. I was looking into them. There's already cannabis stocks, like already kind of growing as it is.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes,
it's
you can
already
invest
starting
in
to happen
those.
already.
Look into industrial hemp. That's where everybody's worried about marijuana, when industrial hemp is what's going to replace cotton, wood, concrete, food. It's so many things that you can do, and everybody's stuck on marijuana. But the industrial hemp industry,
how can you be a part of that supply chain?
I mean, hell,
that's going to be the important piece of the puzzle. It's not about selling weed on the corner because you can do it now. You can brag about it and do it freely, or you can smoke in the streets and walk up and down and blow smoke in the police officer's face now. It's about figuring out the supply chain of how you get from seed to somebody's lips, and how can you put yourself into one piece of that supply chain in order for you to make money, whether that's real estate investment trusts, buying land and letting other individuals grow weed on your property, or coming up with a transportation fleet, or coming up with a rail system where you can move it from farm to market. Like, you got to figure out how to be able to do those things. We're going to deregulate sex work. Women and men both sitting on gold mines. They're gonna have to start selling ass. Well, they already doing it, because we saw in real time during COVID, OnlyFans went up to like 75 million subscribers in less than 60 days. People needed to pay their rent. What's wrong with it? We live in an overwhelmingly Judeo-Christian ethical society that is full of shit, and they are some of the most unethical, immoral, illegal individuals on the face of the earth. Come on now. Let these people make money however they want to. I tell girls all the time, you should never have to want for something because you sit on the gold mine. You can make that thing make money for you if nothing else is going to work for you. If you look handsome.
That is the original ATM.
Huh?
That is the original ATM.
Hey, sex work is going to be, they're going to deregulate sex work. They're going to help America people stay afloat. They're gonna help y'all stay afloat. You just need to figure out how you're gonna do it. Do you want to be the one that's gotta give it up, or you gonna be the madam who running the whole house? You gotta figure it out. You gotta come up with a business model that's gonna work and make you several streams of income. And you have to learn how to get in and get out. You gotta learn that no longer you're gonna be able to put money into a 401k or a Roth IRA for 30, 40 years and then go pick it back up. That's not gonna work anymore. That's dead. That's dead.
Yeah. You kind of got to go out and set up your own.
You got to be a steward of your assets. You got to watch your own money. You got to figure it out. And so if we don't learn that as a group of people on an individual level, then we're not going to, most of them are not going to survive. I'm going to survive. 10 to 12% of us are going to survive. We're going to do okay. It's the top 10, the talented 20, and then the other 80% I'm very, very concerned about. But it's not going to stop me from being able to do what I do.
And I think the other thing is people have to act, because you mentioned it before, but people have to define what success is to them. So like, if you're okay, like you said, with the tiny house, or you're okay with, hey, I'm just going to get some property for my family. We can all live here. We'll collect some rainwater and we'll have a farm and we good. Then get that done. You know what I mean? I think everybody has been trained because of U.S. culture to keep chasing something that you don't even really want. You know what I mean? Like you don't even want to be a billionaire. You don't even want to be a multi-millionaire. You just want to be straight. But like, you get this mentality that you're in a race with who, because you just want to consume more for what? And it's like, I think that is what's going to kind of help free some people up from the idea of like this being too much, or this being like, just get what you want and what you need and be okay with that, rather than
we're gonna have to go back to bartering too. So I got my farm over here. I got chickens and they lay eggs, and you make tomatoes down the street. I give you 2 or 3 dozen eggs. You give me a bushel of tomatoes, and that's just how we're gonna do it. Like we have to start thinking progressively and imaginatively. If you have a craft, if you can do, this whole thing, we've supported Black businesses across now I'm going to be honest with you. I'd have had individuals make one set of treats, and now it's treats by Kiki. Come on, let's be serious about the business that we do. But at the same time, really be thinking about how you can take whatever you like doing as a talent and make a little bit of extra change, pay off the debt you have, and don't go out there and make more debt. This is the time where people are being very, very lenient and working with you. Use that to your advantage. You know, when you talk about reparations, if they allow us to amass that amount of money, people are going to have to be smart with it. Because again, before y'all got on the call, I said it. There's going to be a huge uptick in acquisitions and purchases. Within 24 to 36 months, there's going to be foreclosures and repos, and people are going to realize that they never could afford most of this stuff, and it's going to be a downward spiral. And so all the assets that were given to you will then no longer be with you again. That's another reason why they're going to do it, is because they know what our spending patterns and our activities are. They've watched this. They know how we're consumers. That's how they've been able to make money time and time again off of us and the rest of America. We are going to have to figure it out. And when I say we, I mean the people who are in the know. I tell people all the time, you know, I'm heavy into cryptos. And so I've done relatively okay with it. But I tell people all the time, if you're gonna be a person who's gonna have a whole lot of money in the future, you need to get you a passport and figure out an exit strategy. Because when things get ugly in America, you gonna have to find somewhere else to go with your money. Because if they either that or you're gonna have to pretend like you have none here. Because people gonna get grimy when they start running out of money and they don't have food on their table. It's gonna get rough. So either you need to go somewhere where other people got money, or you need to pretend like you don't got no money around other people. We're going to have to come up with an entire strategy, whether we get reparations or not. Reparations may come. They're having the conversation. It's proposed as a bill. People are ready to talk about it. They're not ready to talk about police reform, but they're ready to talk about reparations. But I won't get on that soapbox tonight. But whether they do that or not, we as a people are going to have to figure it out. This will be a time in history where Black wealth can be created, whether we get that money or not. And that's the mindset that we need to have. Like it can happen right now, where you're talking about being a Vanderbilt, a DuPont, or Carnegie, and a Mellon, and the history of your family's amassing of wealth will go back to a time such as this. If you're strategic about what it is that you're doing and figure it out. I'm off my soapbox. I've talked way more.
Well, no, I mean, that's it. And I think now is the time of people understanding to like, you let that creativity flow. You know what I mean? Like, and at the other point is, you know, at the end of the day, Black people are still Black people, and Black people gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's in the midst of crisis, they gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? Like people are gonna figure out skills. People gonna learn how to do shit. People gonna see opportunity, because that's what they do now. I mean, you know, it might be frowned upon now because you've seen like there's other options, or like, you know, you're working under the table, or you don't have a license or whatever. But in the throes of where all the rules are out the window, I think more people than I even give credit for are going to figure it out. Because I can look at my neighborhood and be like, I don't know what he do, but he figure it out. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? Like they doing something. Like I just see you out here just doing anything, something, like just doing stuff. So I think I'm attempting to give more credit to the ingenuity of Black people because of what we've always had to deal with. You know, and what Black people have always had to deal with, to say it might get a little grimy, but more than often it's gonna figure it out, because it's still, you got to eat, you got to do, you know what I mean, you need shelter, you need this, you need that. And I think that it's going to bring about that more basic, simple type living.
Yes.
And that, you know what I mean, like, and I think that's going to be a plus, but it is a chance for the more informed to amass that great wealth. That opportunity is going to be there too.
Yeah, this is a shift right now. This is a shift between, it's going to really, because the thing with Black people is, and me and John talk about this all the time, is that it's bad, but it's just good enough to not do anything. But that time is coming to an end. And so it's going to force it's going to force the best and the brightest, and even some people that have kind of just been like slacking, it's going to force us to like step it up for our survival. This is a life and death situation that people are really taking for granted, because, yeah, I mean, this is a big thing. Everyone had a lot of plans this year. 2020 is my year. This is going to happen. And it could still be a year. We got about 4 months left. No, 5 months left. See?
How much?
Yeah. But the point is that, you know, you can figure it out. You need to figure it out, and it's of your utmost importance to figure it out. The world
Man.
that we've known is done.
Yeah,
This back to normal shit it's a dub. It's a dub.
Like I say for me, just speaking from personal experience, I know for me, I had to fight the stigma of fighting past that. You know, for success for me was getting in the entertainment industry. Like Dwayne knows me from college, and that was the one thing that I went there for music, and I was thinking like, okay, well, you know, being an entertainer, which is essentially what it is, either being an athlete or an entertainer, that's what was kind of groomed for some of us that do have talents. Like that's what your success is going to be. That's what you have to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
It took, you know, going through life to realize like, hey man, you know, not this ain't for me. I had to realize like, you know, as good as my gift may be, it's just not, it's not sustainable. Well, for me personally, I realized for me it's not sustainable because of a lot of things I looked into with the entertainment industry, which is why I talked to Dwayne about a little while back, how crazy it can really get. And then having the type of controls that they do have, I always want to be in control um over my funds and be in control over the things that I can set for my family. You know what I'm saying? So that was one thing that I had to learn on my own, and I think that's like for a lot of people, and just in our generation, we're starting to see because I see a lot of people that I went to school with or came up with are doing rather well for themselves just based off of just their past experiences from before. Now, not everybody is like that, but I feel like us as a people, you know, eventually more and more will start to do that. So,
Like I said, black people done been through so much and are still like not all the way ape shit bat crazy, everybody. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, so it's just like, I mean, it's as crazy as it will get and all this stuff, but it's like, you know, I got a little faith. You know what I mean? I was like, I got a little faith. Once all the conditioning and stuff wear off, that people will start to look and be like, damn, I got to do this for myself, because people don't realize how dependent they have become on a system that, as for all purposes, done nothing but oppress them. You know what I mean? Like, and then once they realize, okay, I've been dependent on the system so much, now I got to do stuff for myself, like for real, they'll, you know, kind of pick back. And I think I don't want to say, I don't know what I didn't want to say that word that I was about to say, but I think it'll be a simple renaissance of sorts, or just a simple, like, remembering that, like, you can get it, literally build it from the dirt, like build it, do it by hand. You don't need nobody or nothing. And then from there, you can expand upon what you've done. But I think there's going to have to be this intense period of building before a lot of people will be ready to expand and get into global markets and start doing that kind of stuff. So, and hopefully people like Ezra and everybody have built the lanes for people to fill in. You know what I mean? Like the people who are up there be like, oh, we can follow these, or you know what I mean? Like have you know, whatever, just to have those examples of how we do, how once people kind of get back into their mind and get back settled, how do we then move out of that and become basically more of a world power, or, you know, some type of organization or whatever, to start getting, I guess, generational wealth, community wealth, village, however it ends up being structured for however you do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's just you and your family, if you did build a village, if you did, however it is, like now we settled. How do we get in on the rest of the world market now? You know, and I think it's always going to be there. So I don't want like people to be like, oh, if I don't figure it out in the next 10 years, like I'm just screwed and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, it's always going to be there. There's always going to be a world market somewhere in the world. The US was the center and the big part of it for a long time. For our lives, not even a long time, honestly, but for what our recent memory and education. Mm-hmm. And it's like, now it's shifting away, but it's always there. Like travel is always there. People was traveling the seas, trading in salt and sugar and just all kind of stuff. So it's like always there to get into it when you're ready, you know? So like, I didn't want it to be like a doomsday. Like if you don't figure it out by 2024, yes, you and the rest of your family is shit out of luck for the next 4 generations. You know what I mean? Like, but you could be too. Like,
yeah, I always encourage people to get into the IT industry because that's what the industries, as far as everything is computers, are starting to go forward.
Everything is coding.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and understanding it. You know what I'm saying? Um, like now for my industry now, like you don't even really need people go to college for it. You don't really need that. You need maybe 3 or 4 certifications that'll put you in a bracket of up to $80,000. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
Y2K
And
destroyed that whole
it's all
people.
about buckling down and studying. Say again.
Y2K destroyed the need for going to college and majoring in that type of thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Then once I know for me, once I had went to the military and then actually learning like how college was the biggest heist in history, especially for me coming in from Norfolk State. Like I thought I was doing bad, but actually when I talk to people from HU and how they got heisted and all this other stuff, it's like man, it's really crazy out here just to you know what I'm saying when they really put these type of things in your mind. I think
Well,
what really
that came internally though. We black people push the agenda of going to college and getting education by any means necessary, regardless, because we like to brag and say our kids go to college and they have degrees, and we really do think that makes a good black person is to have this education. When we moved away from things that actually generate business income like
Mhm.
trades. That was one of the
Mm-hmm.
even after Reformation after the Civil War, we were able to prosper and thrive because on the plantation we were the blacksmith, and now we got to be the blacksmith over on the other side of town for free, and we got to charge the people that was getting the free labor. But previously, we moved away from that because we saw them as being a lower class of individual. We've treated blue collar workers like trash in the black community, and now we're starting to go back to the fact that you might got a degree, but you may need to know how to do a little bit of plumbing work so that you can make $60-$70 on Saturday or Sunday, put some groceries in the refrigerator. The electrician, if you can't do nothing else but do it at your own damn house, save yourself a couple of $1,000s putting up the ceiling fan. We have to get back to the mindset that education is a broad thing, and that all smarts are not derived from an institution. I always ask people the question. My girl, she went and got her jurisprudence. She got her JD. She's a lawyer now, and I always asked her the whole time she was in law school. So the first lawyers, who put the hoods on them? Used to piss her off because what I was saying was who told them that they were the gatekeepers for getting a doctorate in jurisprudence? Who gave them the gatekeeper? So again, we have to start reframing this whole educational piece to start saying that these institutions and systems were set up and we put these gatekeepers in place and we put them on pedestals when really they created these things out of nothing.
No, pure nothing.
Nothing.
And they created them to make money.
Yes. They
Which
made them
also
out of
means
nothing.
nothing.
All right, you know what? We're coming up on an hour and a half, and I want to make sure that all your questions were asked because we kind of went down a couple of rabbit holes and 15 times around the barberry bush. So, any other questions?
I mean, I definitely I mean, you were talking to me about, I think it was like last year about, the whole crypto thing. You and my uncle been doing that. And I definitely kind of missed that train, but I think there's still time to, move some things around.
You discounted me. Let's be honest. You didn't take it serious as an asset class. You didn't know that it was coming. But now they're starting. You read. They start talking about digital assets. And I told you it was more than a year ago. It was 2-3 years ago. After you was doing, I told you. I said there's going to be a new asset class, and it's going to be digital. And he was like, yeah. But money's not ever going anywhere. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay.
Hey, look, I'll tell you something. I was sick, bro, because I had one of my friends. He had back in the beginning when Bitcoin was like low, like $12-$13. He had like I think about 12 or 14 of those, and he had let them go. Coming fast forward about 2017, Bitcoin is about 4,000 a coin. So you think
2017,
about that.
Bitcoin got up to 20K.
Yeah, so think about that. And he unsold those 12, 14 thinking and like, well, it's not gonna be anything. You know, it,
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
You wait till the US dollar tanks and people have to again move their monies from one asset class to the next asset.
Mhm. There's the little, what is it, the chief postal judge or whatever for the Universal Postal Union. He does addresses on YouTube, and he talks about that crypto and the whole blockchain thing is like was a way for the average person to cut out the middleman. So now you can do direct business in Indonesia
Peer-to-peer.
with peer-to-peer. Yeah, he was like we've cut out all of the basically the governments and all the regulations and all that stuff so that you can actually operate as a sovereign to be able to do business with somebody else in another country without anybody else in between. So you can do your transaction, they can mail you your stuff, and nobody has anything to say or do with any of it. And once he put it that way, I was like, now I get it. Like,
now let me add a layer to that cake for you. Let me bring it home to you. On the continent of Africa, they have a device rate of 108%. Their banking rate is less than 5%. That means most of them don't have bank accounts because they don't trust centralized banks on the continent in those countries.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on the continent has a device, if not multiple devices, right? And so when you think about peer-to-peer transactions on the blockchain, like Zelle, they go down to the market and buy their groceries for the day. It goes from my device to your device, and it's housed on that device so that we can then do that digital bartering. Instead of having, eggs and tomatoes, we now have digital currency that we can barter back and forth with. And when you talk about those global emerging markets that are pre-industrial revolution, that are either underbanked or unbanked, that is exactly how cryptos are going to change. As they start to move money out of Europe, the G20 countries, and into these emerging markets, you're going to see a boom like you have never seen before. So this is my final point to you about reparations. So if the federal government doesn't give you reparations, if you put your money in industry right now, because we're going through an innovation cycle, they're going to create a new swell of wealth. There's something that you need to research. There's been 5 previous economic waves that created wealth in America. You can Google it, they give you a chart, and it'll show you over time at every point where certain industries created generational wealth. We're coming up on the 6th wave tsunami, and this is going to be the biggest one yet. If you can get your ducks in a row and invest in it, you won't have to be worried about reparations from anybody, because you would have created your own through what they're about to do globally. They're about to bring 80% of the world's population into a consumeristic environment. And that's real talk. That's real talk. That's my final point to the whole reparations piece. They can give it to you, and that's great if they do. I'll take it and run with it and do whatever. But if you're smarter about what you got going on right now, and you have your finger to the pulse, you're digesting information from NPR, you're listening to YouTube videos, TED Talks about the direction of the world, and keep your finger in the air to see which way the wind is blowing, and invest in those waves, and understand, don't be greedy. Don't leave your money in there forever. Come up with a strategy. Once it makes 15, 20%, sell and move to something else. Incremental wins, pay off stuff. Find something to say, okay, I bought a house, it cost $200,000. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna pay this house off. I'm gonna pay the rest of my student loans off. I'm gonna pay all the rest of this credit card debt off, get to zero. And then you could really start moving around and creating circumstances and environments that will be good for the generations. But that's my last piece on reparation, is that we're finna go through a tsunami wealth building wave like the 5 previous before. And when you look it up and you look at it, it's gonna blow you away at how individuals were able to make their money and how we were left out of it. Some of us were able to suture ourselves in if we were smart, but for the most of us, Most of us had no idea that these things were going on because we didn't have a seat at the table. Now we have a seat at the table. Now people are having these conversations. You're having a podcast where we're addressing these issues. And although it could reach a huge amount, but even if it's only grassroots, that's good. It's good enough. It's good enough. So whether they give it to you or you make it on your own, you can get reparations if you're smart.
I don't know if he's going to stop recording, but after he does, I do want to ask you about the difference as far as, because I'm in the trading and I'm in the
speak up just a little bit
as well. So
do you speak up a little bit?
Just
Mic
a
goes
little.
low.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hear you?
Yeah, you right. Good.
I'm good right here. Okay, my bad. I was saying I don't know when he's going to stop recording, but I did want to get with you, Ezra, about as far as trading stocks and getting into trading, because that's one thing that I've been talking to a lot of my friends about, and that's something that we're into. So, like, whether to go for the long money and just investing strictly in stocks, or do the trading, which is like
you need to be in all the asset classes if you can. You need to be able to move. Your money moves like a current. So when one asset class isn't doing good, you move it to another one. When real estate market tanks, you move it over into tangibles like gold and silver. When gold and silver isn't doing good, you move it over to treasury bonds and notes for safekeeping to hedge losses. When they're not doing good, you move it over into digital. Digital has stood the test of time through this whole corona situation and actually has made money over the last 4 months. If you do other stuff, then you can go into paper. Right now, cash, USD is still king in the world. We're still circulating. So even if you have to take your portfolio and when you see the markets are starting to tank, you can move your money into cash until it bottoms out. And then if you want to buy back in or buy something else, that's what you do. But you're going to have to be a steward of your assets as we move through the rest of your life. Like, the game has changed completely. There's no more dropping your money off at the bank or letting them deduct money out your check. And then when you retire, you walk back to the bank and they give you your check back. That is not going to work anymore. You're going to end up losing everything you've got if you do that, if you use that strategy. Unless your portfolio is so heavily recession-proof that it can withstand all of the turbulence that's going to happen in the market. But I don't think anybody's is. You got to know how to move your stuff in and out of asset classes. And not just stocks are just one asset class. The market is just one asset class. You got to understand all of the asset classes and how they move and what those indicator points are. When one starts to look like it's going down, it is going to take a huge turn. You need to be able to move those things and know how to move them. That cultural capital of knowing how to move your money around is what people who have real money, you talk about Berkshire Hathaway. You need to start listening to his speeches when he has a quarterly meeting on why he invests his money the way that he does. Listen to what he says. He just spoke about pulling $10 billion out of each of the top 4 airline companies and why he did it. He's very transparent about how he moves money. I'm surprised he ain't got sued yet, but yeah, you need your appetite for what you listen to and what you digest. You need to be listening to Bloomberg first thing in the morning instead of swiping on Instagram or whatever the case may be. You got to start sprinkling in investment-oriented stuff. Listen to NPR. Listen to what they're saying. Read between the lines. I'm telling you, these emerging markets, anytime they say emerging markets on NPR, my ear go up. I slow down. I turn down the air conditioning so I make sure I hear what they're saying and what country it's in. And then I go and research their country. What is their gross domestic product? What are they putting out? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to put in an airport? What is that airport going to be transporting? It's not going to be just transporting people. Those people over there poor. They're going to be bringing in something and sending out something. They're not just putting up a whole fucking airport for nothing. They're moving product, whether it's drugs or anything else. You need to be able to have your finger on the pulse of how this stuff is moving so that you know how to make money.
Gotcha.
All right. About time to wrap.
And then I was like, ooh, are y'all getting double back?
Yeah, we are.
Let me turn it on.
You-
Good now?
Yep.
Okay. And for me, the biggest thing is always become self-sufficient. So no matter what the market does, You can eat. You got a place to stay. And hell, that's really the main thing too. So while you're out here chasing markets too, make sure you got a good foundation. So if it all crashes, you can still eat. Huh?
I said I'm a little comfortable right now.
Well, I'm just saying when everything crashed, can you eat? Have you identified your food? Where you can go get food from if all the grocery stores close down? Like I started identifying some of that tangible stuff too for the people who are not economically minded. So you can still eat. You can still have a basic quality of life. I guess.
Real talk.
That's real. Important words.
No, I'm good.
Oh, I'm so good.
Yo.
Yeah. You went for 81. Now, but Darian, last thing.
So what?
Your final point.
Nah, I don't know.
He said, "Cut the check."
Yeah.
This nigga just came to the cookout and brought cups. That's what's up.
Nah, man. When I came in here, I ain't expect I was gonna get a little bit of education as well. You know what I'm saying? It's always good to learn. You know what I'm saying? As much as I step back, you know what I'm saying? I like to talk, but I mean, I'm also willing to listen as well. I mean, I know more because I'm listening to somebody else that does know something, you know. Ezra J spitting some knowledge. So I was like, oh, let me kind of dive into this. I see you whip out the notebook, and I was like, let me go ahead and try to do the same thing. That's why you see me kind of going back and forth because I got my little pen on my Note 9, so. You know, just trying to get some notes for later. I like this session though.
Yeah, it was very informative. So my final point. Yeah, we need to. When it comes to reparations, don't hold your breath. But at the same time, we need to move ourselves in the situation to where it doesn't matter. If we have to make our own reparations, then so be it. So if anyone wants to find you guys, where can they find you? We'll start up with Ajaya.
AjayaDivine.com. My podcast is Infinite Beings Unite. That's on Spotify and Anchor. And of course, I mean, I'm Ajaya Divine on all social networks. That's where you find me.
Ezra, where can they find you at?
Well, I'll let you filter out individuals. So you have my contact information. If you want to connect me to anybody, then I'll let you be the steward of that thing.
Okay. Available upon request. All right, and D, where can they find you at?
A lot of things right now I'm pulled down because I'm still in some transition period, but I'm gonna have some things coming up pretty soon for you.
All right,
so right now, to be continued.
True. And you can find me where you find me at. Make sure you like, subscribe, and cancel me. It is what it is. Thank everybody for joining in the conversation. Y'all take it easy.